All right, so I don't know if y'all heard that, but now everything's being recorded tonight. So we do this so, as y'all know, if for some reason something happens and you're unable to attend class tonight, you're more than welcome to watch this video and listen to me again. All right, so we are going to talk about medical, legal, and ethical issues. This is probably going to be the most boring class of the night, or of the whole program. I try to make it fun. I try to my best, but oh Jesus, I'm sorry. I just try, okay? But that's the best that I can do. All right, so as you know, we got to go talk about these National EMS educational standards. Applies fundamental knowledge of the EMS system, safety, well-being of EMTs, medical, legal, and ethical issues to the provision of emergency care. So as we're going to talk about several of these parts as we go through this lecture, consent, refusal of care, you need to know what the difference is, confidentiality, advanced directives, that's really important. Tort and criminal, tort and criminal actions, evidence preservation, and statutory responsibilities. We're going to also go over mandatory reporting, ethical principles, and moral obligations, and end-of-life issues. I hate to say issues, but it's end-of-life care. And it's not only does it end-of-life care, but you also want to have end-of-life support for, I mean, just the family members too. I mean, that's just as important. Something just popped up on my screen. I don't know why it's there. But anyway, but I have this little icon. Can y'all see that icon on my right-hand side of my screen, or is that just me?
Yeah, we can see it.
I don't know. I don't know how to get rid of that. I'm sorry. How? It just came out of nowhere because I wasn't clicking on anything. Well, I'm gonna have to figure that one out because it's on my Mac's not Anyway, well, it'll have to stay there until I can figure it out. So we're going to talk about the basic principle of emergency care is to do no harm. And basically what we want to do is we want to make sure people are treated with the utmost care, no matter what. We don't want to do anything that's going to further harm them in any of our care. Our jobs are, remember, and I'll say this multiple times, we only see people in the worst times of their life. We don't see people when it's party time or other fun crap like that. They just see us when it's bad. All right, so my everything's messing up on me tonight. All right. So a healthcare provider usually avoids legal exposure if he or she acts in good faith and according to appropriate standard of care. Even with emergency medical care is properly rendered, sometimes you may be sued by a patient seeking monetary compensation. That being said, is as long as you stay within your protocols, even if they do sue you, you are covered. Now they may come after you, saying that you did this. Well, you got to make sure your documentation. We're going to go over report writing and communication later on in this class, but all that is just as important. Maybe it'll go. All right. Consent is a permission to render of care. So when I say, hey, how you doing? So you call 911, what can I help you with? Or, be like, if you've seen them 100 times, be like, hey, Fred, we back because your diabetes is low again. Or if they don't say anything at all and they're unconscious, that is a given that you can take care of them until they come back to their senses. And then you have to ask, be like, hey, I'm Chris with such and such ambulance service. I'm the paramedic. Can I provide care for you? Yes, we have to ask, implied consent versus verbal consent. That's all the fun stuff we have to live with. So a person must give consent for treatment. Like it says, if the patient is conscious, look, I just talked about that. But they also do have the legal right to tell you no. Their arm may be falling off and blood dripping down from it. But if they say, no, I don't want you to touch me, Well, you can't touch them. You may have to call med control and get orders. Sorry, it is. You may have to get orders to sedate them or bring them in against their will because it's life threatening. Those are some of the things you may have to try to relay to your med control over the phone to where they give you consent to bring them in without the patient. All right, let's see here. All right, I really want to get rid of that. I don't know how to. Oh, there you go. Is that better for you guys? I don't, again, sorry, I don't know where that came from. All right, so here, we'll talk about the foundation of consent and then why it's based on decision making. Can they understand simple directions? The patient can make an informed choice regarding medical care. In determining a patient's decision making capacity, consider these factors when you're talking to a patient. Is the patient intellectually capable to make a decision, or are they mentally impaired by maybe, they may have a birth defect, or they may just have dementia. If they have those, they're not able to make those decisions without an adult who has legal custody of them. Is the patient legal age? They have to be 18 years of old unless they're emancipated by the state for them to make this health decisions on their own. I got an alert on my screen. Somebody raised their hand. Y'all just, we good there, or am I just seeing things? Y'all so quiet. All right. So back to this. So does the patient appear to be experiencing significant pain? Does the patient have a significant injury that could distract him or her from a more serious injury? Do they have a traumatic brain injury? Maybe suffering from a concussion, and they're like, no, don't talk to me. Don't touch me. Maybe because their mental capacity, because they have the concussion or the traumatic brain injury, is causing that. Do they have a language barrier? Are they able to understand what you're asking? Certain places throughout the country, Mississippi, I always like to joke about Mississippi. That's where my home is. So we are not in the best for much and across our state, but we do have a system in place that we go through our trauma center. We call Mississippi UMC, or the UMC Medical Center, and ask to speak to somebody that speaks whatever language. There's somebody on staff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or they can contact them at the same time that speaks a language that you need. So if you're having trouble communicating with somebody and they only speak, let's say, Arabic, well, they have some Arabic speaking personnel that work for the medical facility, and you can call a direct number and talk to one of their air dispatchers and get it situated. So that's very helpful there. And does the patient appear to understand what you're saying? Does the patient ask rational questions that demonstrate and understand of the information you're trying to share? Bruh, do you pick up what I'm putting down? It's basically what I need to know. If you making answers like, hey, is today Wednesday? Well, yes. Well, what do you think about the weather? Well, you want to ask yes or no questions. You don't want to ask open-end questions, because maybe they just hate this color shirt you got on, and now you gave them an open, to tell you, you look like crap in that shirt. So yes or no questions helps them build, good decision making for answering your questions. All right. So if they talk about express consent, this means that I have verbally, sorry, I got confused myself. They can nod at you. Now, I'm sitting here looking at myself. I nodded and said, yes, you could take care of me. If they nod and say yes by shaking their head up or down, or give you a thumbs up because maybe that they can't speak, those are, why I yawn? those are valid consents for you to take care of them. You explain what you're going to do. Tell them the risk and benefits. Hey, if we don't stop this, if you don't allow me to put this tourniquet on you, you are going to die. Like, you will die and you will not come back. Do you understand what I'm saying? If they say yes, but I don't want you to touch me, guess what you do? Put your stuff back on the truck. Now, there's two sides of it. If they bleed out and they pass out, well, then they can't answer the question. So you have incomplied consent to try to treat the person. That is very, very tricky part for you to do that. But you can also call med control and say, hey, I'm new. I don't know what to do. Help me. They'll give you some suggestions on what to do and move forward. So implied consent usually applies to patients who are unconscious, and maybe they're just not capable of making decisions. You see on the figure 3.1, when a serious threat to life exists and the patient is unconscious or otherwise unable to give consent, the law assumes that the patient would consent to care and transport to the hospital. That's what they say. That's what they assume. So, depending on what your state states, you may need to check the law, ask your provider and or fire department what is the standard of care and what can I do in this situation. It's okay to say what if to get your point across, because you're like, I don't know. I want to know because I don't want to go to jail. Implied consent applies only when a serious medical condition exists and should never, ever be used unless there is a threat to life or limb. Okay. The principle of implied consent is known as emergency doctrine. It is a good idea to try to get consent from a spouse or relative before treating a patient based on the implied consent. Be like, hey, ma'am, I don't know if you have full, legal rights or, custodial over your husband, but can we treat him and take him to the hospital? Now, if you get there and all the bags are packed and they're like, hey, we want to go to, First General. Well, like, that's implied consent because they're already telling you their crap's packed and they're ready to go. We just need you to load them up. What you waiting on there, cuz? So that's already consented that you can do that. All right, so let's go a little bit deeper. So involuntary consent, it applies to many patients who are mentally ill, psychological crises. You like that one? And developmentally delayed. We have our, there's several categories in developmentally delayed. I despise certain words that categorize people in that. So I refuse to use it. I like the word mentally challenged. I'm not sure if that is correct. I haven't been told no yet. So I would like, if somebody has better background in that, that'd be amazing to hear. But you always want to obtain consent from the guardian or the conservator. Let's see. It is always possible to obtain such consent. So understand your local provisions. That's very important. For example, many states have protective custody statutes that allow such a person to be taken under law enforcement authority to a medical facility. So if the police show up and they're saying, well, we're going to place you in custody, but we want you to be medically treated before you come to the jail. Now they can ROR them, release them on their own recognizance, and push them, leave them alone at the hospital because that's where they needed them to go. But that's what you need to know that before you dive off into that and be like, oh, y'all just need to arrest them so we can take them. Well, it's not that easy, So minors get a little tricky again too. As you know, if any of you have children, you got to give legal consent for them to treat your baby. There's the reason why when you go to the doctor and or hospital, you have to sign that form saying, you consent to the treatment test and that they don't have to get your permission every single time, because that's what you signed. You signed those rights, not saying your rights away, but you signed those rights for them to make that medical decision for you. Emancipated minor is the person who is under the legal age, but is given state in any given state, but of other circumstances is legally considered an adult. So the parents can go and sign their rights away, but they're legally saying that this child at 16 years old can make legal decisions for themselves. The ones that are emancipated are very smart about the case because they make a lot of decisions on their own. So sometimes they're going to work on that too. Teachers and school officials may enact in place of the parents in loco of the parents, but that gets tricky also too, because some parents, some religions out there won't allow, like I told y'all, certain people to take care of them, certain places to go to. They can't have blood transfusions. So I don't ever like to listen to a teacher or a school official. I won't transport the kid until I will transport the kid to a facility, but as long as it's not life-threatening, I won't do anything to the kid on the way to the hospital. If it's life-threatening, obviously I'm going to do everything in the world for that child, but it's a big legal issue to do that, so you have to be careful. Now, like if they go to a camp, or let's say band camp, summer camp, you sign waivers for them to make those decisions on your behalf. So the camp, whatever their names are, the ones that's in charge of them, can make the decision that's the best for your child. So you may also have to take a copy of that and or get a picture of it. And if the patient is from out of town and that person's in charge, they must go to the medical facility with you so they can make the call on their medical care. So just remember that. Sometimes you may have riders. If it's life or death, treat your patient no matter what. Like it says on the screen, treat the patient, consent is implied. Just do what's best for the patient. It's easier to write a report and them say, he did it because I didn't want him to do it. Well, okay, but understand that they did everything that they believed and within our protocols for this person to take care of you. I understand you're aggravated and mad and want to go to court, but he didn't do anything any different for you that he would have done to somebody else. So think about that. Forcible restraints. Let me just tell you, that's touchy. You just can't be like, you know what, Fred, you done pissed me off, I'm tying you down. You can't do that unless they're causing harm to themselves and him or herself, and you can control it. Forcible restraints are necessary for patients if they need medical treatment and transport, but they're not in their right mind. They're combative, they fight you, or they present risk to themselves and danger to others. You've everybody's seen your psych patient or somebody that's mentally distressed, and they talk to themselves or they answer themselves. It's okay to talk to yourself, but when you really answer it, I don't know if that's a good decision or not. But sometimes in crisis mode, you may have to restrain them, and you can call for medical consent afterwards, or tell them, be like, hey, look, this dude was getting ready to kick our butts, but we had like 10 people before we left, so we went ahead and tied him down because I felt like I was a danger. Some law enforcement will partake into this. Some law enforcement agencies will not. One of the big metropolitans that's around me, I don't work for that service that has that area anymore, but that particular service does not help restrain any patients. They just, even if you get your butt whooped on the side of the road, they'll be like, well, you shouldn't have gone over there to them. Well, thanks for your help. I appreciate it. Come on, computer. All right, once applied, do not remove restraints. I don't care how nice they've been, how calm they've been. If they've passed out, leave them in place. because when they wake back up, they're probably going to be pissed off at you. All right. Anytime that you have to restrain somebody, and let's say you're on a basic truck by yourself, you need to let your dispatch know, request a higher level of service so you can have that patient potentially chemically restrained. And what we mean by that is you can give them a medication, or we can give them a medication that will sedate them and or knock them out. It's for their safety, our safety, and ease of transport. So any conscious adult that can answer simple questions: what is today's date? What year is this? Who's the president? Whose picture is on the $1 bill? Those patients have the right to refuse any treatment. If they are driving down, whatever interstate in your area, and you're 2 minutes from the hospital, and they can say, you know what, stop this. I don't want to get in this truck anymore. I want out of here. I want to leave. Guess what you do? Pull that son gun over to the side of the road, let them out, and advise dispatch. Be advised, hey, patient has refused care and exited the vehicle. You may have to call, well, depending on your service, but I would say no matter what, if somebody does that, or even if you're backing into the hospital and that patient undoes and says, you're like, no, don't undo your seatbelt, be like, nope, I'm leaving. You can't stop them if they're of the right mind. If they're not of their right mind, they can't legally make that decision. So those are tricky, very tricky. Let's see, assess the patient's ability to make informed decisions. We just told you about that. Ask repeat questions, assess the patient's answers. If the patient appears confused or delusional, you cannot assume that if they don't answer anything correct, or they just, they have a history of behavioral emergencies, it's okay for you not to allow them to make those decisions, but call med control and be like, hey doc, look, this is Wally. I'm just letting you know I got this guy. We've run him multiple times. He has a history of dementia. He's combative, and he's over there bleeding right now. He won't let us close, but he's already telling us y'all can leave because I don't want you here. So you at that point in time, you may have to go sedate, physically restrain him and take that one to the hospital. Providing treatment is much more defensible position than failing to treat. The biggest thing there is don't endanger yourself. If you don't treat somebody and something happens, you're going to look way worse because you didn't do crap. You're going to look a whole lot better, but you're still going to look worse if you did something and you worked your butt off and that patient still dies. They still going to fuss about you and how you didn't do nothing, but it sure looks a lot better. Again, you need to know what your police department, what their protocols really are on helping you. So I say be careful with that. Don't abuse it, and always be very respectful when they come back around and you say, hey, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your help. It was nice of you to help me. So, because they can turn around and be like, well, we're not going to help them no more. Remember, they were buttholes to us. So anytime that you get ready to leave a scene and the patient has refused, you must, and let me capitalize must, you must recheck that patient. They may not want you to physically touch them, but be like, Fred, hey bro, it's me again, it's Wally. Before I leave here, I just want to double check with you to make sure that you don't want to go to the hospital. I know you say it now, but if I leave and I get 2 minutes down the road and you call me back, I'm not going to be mad, but I would rather take you now than later. So always get them to sign a refusal, get somebody else there to sign that refusal, and I always make them print and then sign. I asked them, hey, I just want to make sure that you saw me get him to sign that on his own. I didn't force him. Can you just sign right here as a witness? If the patient gets up and leaves your truck because they say, screw you, I'm tired, you need to make sure you document that, because that's not a completion ticket. That's now a cancellation because the patient just said, nope, I'm done, I'm out. So, well, it depends on your service, but be cautious with that. Always document, 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 document. If you don't document it and then you go to court and say, oh, well, yeah, I did that. Well, if it's not in your report, guess what? You didn't do it, period. On this one, I would rather do 500 ambulance transports than do one refusal, because the ones that refuse you are the ones that are going to see you in court. That's about 99% of the time. Let's see here. So confidential. To be confidentiality on here, you have, so like we talked the other night on certain things what you can and can't say. But just remember, you can't be like, oh, you know, Fred got transported the other day and you're at the bar where Fred normally hangs out. Well, remember, that's not ethically correct. So when you do that and then Fred finds out and he sues you, you're gonna lose. I'm just gonna let you know you deserve to go to jail because you passed on information that shouldn't have been let out. In most states, records may be released only if the patient signs a release, they are legally subpoenaed, and if they're needed by a billing person. A lot of your agencies across the country have all gone to electronic tickets. The only time a lot of folks will use regular paper tickets is if the electronic fails. I remember when we still used paper tickets and we moved to electronics. I can show my age there, but electronics sometimes a pain in the butt. So if billing needs a copy of it, the service that I work for, well, that I part-time work for, billing has just as much legal right to see that report, because the way that they bill, it's not by, they do bill by call, by miles, but they also bill by package. So if you do certain things, you get an ALS1 bill. If you do IVs or any type of drug, it's a ALS type 2. That's across the country. That's how every insurance company bills for it, because that was set in place by Medicaid, Medicare, and Medicaid, Medicare is a way bigger than your regular Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana. So that's where that came from. I don't know if I really wanted to know that, but let's just pass that on. All right, so everybody knows the Hipaa Act of 1996. This is very, 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 very important. I'm pretty sure the Hipaa Act of 1966 will probably be a test question. So this really got put in place and set on our behalf, because before, people could just go up and down the road and be like, hey, you know, I transported Wally the other day. And then when you come to find out, you'd be like, well, you know, they make a phone call to you. And they're like, well, who told you? Oh, that paramedic, I saw him at the bar. We know each other, but they were talking about what's happening. So it really helped protect us. Before, it was on kind of like the honor system, but not too many people are ethically sound to keep their mouth shut. So, you know, that was really the biggest part of adding that there. And then the PHI became, so that's protective health information. That is not like PHI helicopter company. But so there's a lot of information out there that is now protected health information that really never was before. That's the reason why a lot of places have had to quit asking for your social. Sometimes if they ask for your social, that paperwork has to be destroyed as soon as it's put into the computer system. I'm kind of the rebel. I don't ask for it either out here in the Gulf or on land. I don't really ask for your social anymore, because that's some privileged information that I'm not privy to on every single patient. So if you fail to even consider the HIPAA form or the HIPAA laws, you can be criminally charged, and the general public is often permitted by law enforcement to record identity and protected the patient's information and images. So if you, what you do with those things can also get you in trouble, but failure to do protect the patient's HIPAA rights, and not only you may lose your license in that particular state, but you go to another state, they ask you, why did you lose your license in the state of blank? So, and that is disclosed when other states send the information over. So sometimes you can run from it, but you can't run from all of it. Big thing. Here's our problem these days: the social media. I probably got them all wrong: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever the other ones are. I don't really know, but posting any type of pictures with uniforms, badges, where you're at, what you're doing, that's just not, it's not a professional page. So you have to be careful about that. Now, it's okay for you and like your bestie to take a picture of each other and y'all are smiling and all that, but remember, if you take a picture of a car wreck and that picture makes it out and somebody's family sees that, you're probably going to be sued. The big thing there is, remember, see at the very bottom, it says free speech does not mean that everyone has the right to say anything under circumstances without repercussion. Respect your patient's rights, their friends and family and bystanders, co-workers, colleagues, and other organizations for which you work for, both persons and online. I may not know you guys, but I may know somebody that you know if you're from the South area. We may know somebody that's a mutual friend. So no matter if I post something and be like, you know, Fred's a crappy student, or I'm sick and tired of these students, maybe I was referring to one of the CPR classes that I taught, but instantly these guys are going to be like, hey, isn't Chris Wiley one of your teachers? Well, look at what he posted. Well, just remember, just because you're freedom of speech, you can be careful. That can also cost you a job and a career. A lot of companies now have social media rules and guidelines, and you have to sign those when you get hired. All right, so advanced directives. Oh, shoot, we got a long time. So advanced directives, or DNR, which DNR means do not resuscitate, or they do have DNTs, also means do not treat. Again, to the state of Mississippi, if you are, I'm just going to use hospice, if you're put on hospice and you have a DNR order, the state of Mississippi states that that order has to be signed, a new one has to be signed every 90 days for it to stay legal. Just because they have a picture of it and you've been alive in a vegetable since 1980, it don't mean that that advanced directive is still in place. So check your state and your local guidelines on what the standard is for the DNRs, and know that, because you're going to run calls like that. Those type of calls are very common. People will get put on hospice, and then the family members may not agree to the hospice. So you may have 2 out of the 3 that are on it, and then the third one may not. Well, they all have legal custody of you. So guess what? Now you got a fight on your hands. You got to figure out what to do. Make sure you follow your protocols from your service. I know, again, in the state of Mississippi, we have a Central Mississippi protocols that actually just does cover the entire state. Each ambulance service for the state of Mississippi allows the firefighters and paramedics that are at police stations and or fire stations to work underneath their umbrella. So they give them the permission to do that. So even though I follow the fire department's protocols when I'm here, or if they have their own medical director, they can do what they want. They don't have to follow the ambulance services. But most of your county fire departments and city fire departments that are from our areas, they don't have the funds to have their own doctor on board. And it's like, why do I need to pay this god awful amount of money to have this when I rely on a private service to transport our patients? So need to know what your service states on DNRs and what your state says. If they contradict each other, it can be a nightmare for you. You may have living wills, healthcare directives, but let's see here. Clear statement of the patient's medical problems needs to be on there. A signature of the patient or a legal guardian. Signature of one or more physicians or the licensed healthcare provider. DNR orders with expiration dates must be dated and preceding 12 months to be valid. Again, Mississippi's is every 90 days, they have to be renewed. So it's just, that's a state law. So they do have expirations on there, but no matter what, I always pick up the phone and call my med control doctor anytime I get a hands of a DNR or do not resuscitate, do not treat, because then I'm back. I get an extra backing when that third family member does not agree to the decisions that are made by majority of the family. So it's just that it's better off to have that. Here's a very old advanced directive. They mainly don't add pictures. I've never seen one with a picture. That's kind of funny, but it's basic patient information about what's going on. You know, the patient's name, date of birth, symptoms, problems, what the deal is, and you know, the family's chosen to, or this person has chosen to have no resuscitation and due to life-ending issues. And they may still call 911 and you show up, but it doesn't really look like that, to be example. I don't know those acronyms. So these medical orders explicitly describe acceptable interventions to the patient. They must be signed by an authorized medical provider to be valid. And if you encounter these documents, contact med control for further treatment. So what they do is just allow you to have an extra hand with things and an extra person to give you ideas, be like, hey, bro, it's me again. I know you're tired of me. I need some help. Because can you help me, please? So it's always helpful to call med control. Some patients have their name have named surrogates to make the decisions for them. So you may have a legal guardian, you may have a legal custodial. It just depends on the lettering. They may also have another person that makes healthcare decisions. So you may have one sibling making all financial and legal decisions, and then the other one's making all healthcare and mental decisions. So they do get a little confusing, I promise. You probably have a hospice facility in your area or in your county or borough, wherever you guys are from. So if you happen to have one, just kind of think that in mind, you know, be like, there are at-home hospice also. So you can go, let's see, a facility hospice, at-home hospice, and then some hospitals now have in-facility hospice. It's kind of confusing, I get that. So at the end of it, the very end, a physician will sign the death certificate. So once they're done, they have to, a medical provider will finally, I mean, they may be stiff, but they get the time and date, and that's not just the coroner that makes that, but a medical director does. So presumptive signs of death. If you look at them and you're like, they dead. Unresponsiveness to painful stimuli. lack of a cricoid pulse or heartbeat, absence of breath sounds, and no deep tendon or corneal reflexes. If you open their eyes and you try to get some movement or them to blink and they don't do it, that is you can assume that they're possibly deceased, but you can't guarantee that until you have a EKG, and most times those on ambulances will carry that for an advanced or paramedic. So once they get that EKG, they can confirm it in 2 separate leads, and then you can confirm that that's actual death. There's some more: absence of eye movement, systolic nose, systolic blood pressure, profound cyanosis. What cyanosis? Anybody know what cyanosis is? Let's ask a group question. I'm tired of talking for a second. Anyone?
Does it mean that they are blue?
Where? Blue where?
So, their lips are blue.
Okay, all right. So the technical Webster definition of cyanosis is a bluish discoloration of the skin resulting from poor circulation or inadequate oxygenation of the blood. Now, their fingertips may be blue. If you've been to somebody that's been really, really cold for a long period of time, their fingertips may be blue and their lips may be blue because they have signs of cyanosis, but that's because they cold. They can still have a heartbeat, but they cold. But if they're deceased, everybody always says you're not deceased until you're warm and dead, because they've had histories of people being cold and dead, and they can be brought back because the heart has not been damaged being so cold. But you're not officially dead till you're warm and dead. And then they have a complete decreased body temperature because they've been there for so long. Here's a picture right here. That's the lividity, sorry. So if you'll look, you can see where a hand was when maybe they pushed them over. You can see the thumb, the first birdie, you can see all 5 fingers actually. And that is a sign of lividity. Obviously, they've been laying in one position for so long that has caused the blood to pool in one area. Dependent lividity, as obviously you see, is blood settling, like we just talked about, and that a body in part considered to be a decapitation. If the head is missing from the rest of the body, I promise you don't have to put a cardiac monitor on. They not gonna make it. And then obviously with signs of lividity at the same point is they are obvious signs of death. All right. Rigor mortis often occurs between 2 to 12 hours, depending upon their location, the temperature, but most of the time 2 to 12 hours. Rigor mortis is cooling of the body until it matches the ambient environment temperature. And decompensation is where the body starts breaking itself down, and it is very nasty. That starts between 40 to 96 hours. So you can say if somebody's been deceased in 2 hours, it could be 2 to 3 days before their body starts decompensating, and it starts just disintegrating, just starts going away. It's gross. So there's that. A few more minutes. Maybe we can get through a couple more of these. Hang on one second. Let me look at something. I'm trying to check some notes to see if I have this written down or. Maybe not. All right. So involvement depends on nature of the scene. So if the examiner is notified in the case, as in any time that law enforcement has to be out there and you're called, the patient might potentially be DOA, we need you to go out and check them. Well, they in pieces, you don't really have to worry about that one. That's obviously. But they're going to know that if they're dead on arrival, death with previous medical care, suicide, violent death, poisoning known as suspected we don't know. I don't know if they've been poisoned. It's not now. If you walk into a home and there's blood all over the room, and it may be from a violent death. It could be from an upper GI bleed, and they just coughed and blew blood all over the place. That's also possible. But being cautious and not contaminating a crime scene is very, very important too. Obviously, you have to have the coroner at any death. Most of your agencies nowadays do not transport deceased patients. Some do. Not many that I'm aware of anymore in my area. But the examiner still has to come out from any type of motor vehicle accident death. Obviously, for criminal death, you're going to have plenty of police there, and any type of infant or child death. Those are your hardest ones, in my opinion. And I've worked many deaths in my career. The little ones that pass are not the easiest in the book to deal with. Special situations. If you know that this person's an organ donor and you need to make special things and arrangements because they have to be at a certain facility by a certain time. Certain organs can only be without being removed and plaqued on ice for so long, or have something else hooked up to it to where the blood still can flow through it. They got to have oxygen, because if not, the oxygen deficiency will kill it. It is our priority, even though that we know that they are a organ donor. Yeah, we still got to save their lives. So it's not like, oh, Fred's got a mark on his driver's license, we can't save him. Well, no, that's not true. But if it was an obvious death, he wants his parts of his body to either go to science or, to be used to help somebody else potentially. So no matter what, we still are going to do our best to try to save them and render aid. But they don't make it, you need to also let the hospital know, be like, hey, look, he was an organ donor. Fred was a nice guy, but be careful of his kidneys. They may be bled out from alcohol. So some folks will carry medical cards, not the marijuana medical cards, but other cards. Y'all could think about it like that. They will have those marked. Most likely the family's well aware. It's trying to answer another message. It's they're gonna know that because and then also they may know that they're getting ready to pass, and they may be at the facility when they do pass. So that's already taken on. But if you come across these or somebody sees it, make sure you act in a timely manner, because their organs are very important. You can have medical bracelets. People now, instead of doing the bracelets, necklaces, or keychains, because I lose my keys all the time. So if I had to have my keychain, I'd be in trouble. You may see them as tattoos. I've come across that in two different people. They were highly allergic to certain things, and they tattooed it on them so they wouldn't have to worry about it. We started a system when I was with the police. We started a medical system on a USB drive that at any point in time, the officers had a USB on their person, off duty or on duty or SWAT or anything like that, to where if they were injured and had to go to a hospital, that drive was already on them. If you were injured and you had your vest on, it was in your vest. SWAT had them on their individuals, plus the SWAT medic had one, plus the team leader, and that's with everybody's, and it was updated every 60 days. So that was kind of neat, something I helped start, so I was kind of proud about that. But it all had password protecting. A lot of times it was their badge number or their last name. So there's your picture of a bracelet. Obviously, y'all have seen medical bracelets before. Flip them over, read the back. They may tell you that they're highly allergic to latex after you've already rubbed all over them, doing patient assessment, checking the front side, back side, make sure there's no bleeds that you can see. And now they're swelling up like a big old frog. And you're wondering, what's wrong? What's wrong? Maybe because now they're in anaphylactic shock because of your gloves. I was giving you a worst case scenario. Let's see. I'm gonna stop here and take a break. We'll take 10 minutes. I need to go take care of something myself. But we'll see. Let's do 10 minutes. We'll come back here at 3 after 7. See y'all in just a few minutes. All right, so let's get back at it. A little bit more to go. I know y'all are so much excited about this as I am. All right, so the best thing that we can get out of this is you know that you have so your scope of practice is lined out to you by protocols and standing orders like you see there. So the protocols is what's written by your agency that governs and allows you to do what you do. All right. So if it says that basics are allowed to do blood pressures, sugar checks, such, it will state that very clearly in a tier form protocol. So your standing orders is something also that your medical director allows you to do that is not necessarily say it's in your protocols, but it's a new change and an update. So that's a standing order that's done by your medical director. Why is it not working? All right. So carrying out procedures outside the scope of practice is going to be negligent and it's a criminal offense because you're practicing medicine that you don't have a license for. Once you graduate this class and you take National Registry and you pass National Registry, you will have a licensure that allows you to work at the national level. But again, you have to have a medical provider to sign off on you that allows you to work underneath his or her medical license. So you're an extension of the doctor and you have to do basically what they say. If they don't allow you to do something that the other agency right down the street does, that's on that doctor. Anytime that you need to reach out to your medical director, you can reach out by telephone. You may have standing or protocols that are done offline. So your online med control is done reached at by a radio or phone. And a radio means in the ambulance that you call the hospital in, that you may have to call a certain particular hospital because that's your only hospital in the area, and you speak to the doctor via the radio and say, "Hey doc, this is such and such. I want to do this, this, and this because this patient's in this position," or da 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 da. And he may say, "No, don't give 6, give 12 milligrams of, rock." So there's a reasons why they tell you certain things because they know, obviously they're a doctor and you an EMT or a paramedic, so they're gonna know a lot more than us, and that's okay. So standards of care. So standards of care are very important because that is basically how you treat somebody, how you treat them, how you want to be treated, no matter what. If you want to provide a very good bedside manner and you expect a very good bedside manner from another healthcare provider, you gotta give it. If you don't provide it and you don't give it to them, well, I don't know what you're expecting because you you can't get the respect if you don't give respect. You always need to be concerned about their concerns, treat them with the utmost of care, and it's the manner in which you act, you behave, that is all called standard of care. I should have turned the speaker down a minute ago. That's annoying. I got caught up in that one. All right, so standards of care, standards imposed by local custom, how a reasonably prudent person with a similar training and experience would act under similar circumstances with similar equipment and in the same or similar place. Bruh. So they comparing us to somebody else that would do the same thing. So that's going to be where your standard of care comes from, is because it's that utmost care is the standard out there. Standards of emergency medicine care may be imposed by statutes, ordinances, administrative regulations, or case law. Be familiar with the particular legal standards in your state once you get into this full time, some of you may have some other medical careers, some other medical background, and you know about that. When you get into the EMS world, get to know who governs the EMS law in your state. Get to know your EMS committees. Understand why they're making these laws. And I'm not asking you to get out there and be hoorah, yay, I want to join these committees right out the gate, because you don't really know. You got to get some time underneath your belt to get out there and then hoorah and try to change these things. But any little bit helps figure out why these are being written. It helps you have a better grasp on what's going on. And then when the other person starts whining, bitching, and moaning, you can be like, hey, Fred, this is why it's like this. Not because they think it's stupid. There's a reason behind it. And let me help you. Let me help explain it to you. Professional or institutional standards. Those are recommendations that are published by organizations that ain't never really been out there and societies that are involved in emergency medical care. For example, that's where we get the American Heart Association's standard for BLS and CPR. Now, they do a lot of studies. AHA does a lot of studies. So they're a good one to follow. Their guidelines are pretty on point because they do case studies and in the field studies. So specific rules and procedures of your EMS agencies. Sorry, I forgot though. Standards imposed by textbooks. Almost all textbooks follow the standards at the national level. They give you ideas of why that is written, like textbooks. Here's the National Highway Traffic Standard Act. That's the NHTSA. That's who writes the overall education for EMTs. All right, they write a lot of they govern a lot of the education, the laws, the requirements of ambulances, and all this and that. Rebecca, I just renewed my CPR reviews. Yes, so see, and that's I'm in the process of getting all my CPR, ACLS, PALS, all that stuff back for instructor. And as you can tell, I have so much time to get this done. So, but yes, they provide a lot of, and like she's saying that, they push out a lot of information about some of the new studies that's been out there, how long these studies have been in place, why they're being done. Sometimes they may not tell you, but they're just saying, hey, they're on a 5-year study, and you're like, God dang, what year of it is? Oh, it's just the first week. God dang. So they don't have any data to back those up, but they have the information, they're gathering it. So in the next 6 to 7 years, you can see a change moving forward from that particular study. Like I said, local protocols and state standards, they may differ, but always follow your local, because the locals are written on what your medical director and the state allows. State to state will allow different paramedics to do certain things. Like prime example, I'm allowed to do sutures, chest tubes, and central lines out here, but when I'm in the on land, I can't do none of that. Like out here, I prescribe prescriptions. I can't do that on shore. So there's a lot of different things. Critical care paramedics. I mean, that's probably one of the hardest classes I've ever been through in my life, to get critical care. So, but you have a different skill set. Like the skill set you're working on right now is EMT. That was based out many, many years ago, that was written by the National Highway Traffic Standard Act. All right, standards of care established, standards imposed by states. Some states EMTs are exempt from licensure, but they still have to get, like, they're exempt from the national, they don't have to be nationally registered, but they have to be state registered. They have to be credentialed. That's a process that's established to, Let's see here. I'm trying to figure out how I can say this. So credentialing is an established process to determine the qualifications that are necessary for you to be, well, let's see here. They're necessary to be allowed to practice your profession or function at the state level. Whew, sorry, I had to get that out of there. All right. So EMTs, advances, or paramedics, they may be licensed or certified. I am a certified licensed practicing paramedic in multiple states because I'm nationally certified, I'm state certified, and I'm licensed by the National Registry of EMTs, and I'm licensed by the 2 states that I work for. So it is confusing. It's kind of nuts sometimes when they're like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Certain states aren't requiring national registry. You can be state certified, let's say like Florida and Texas, but they will recognize your national certification, and you can go ahead and get a state certification without taking the state test because you already had a license. Does that make sense? Or national certification? So, all right. So I'm sure, Rebecca, when you had your CPR class, you went over, or if any of you guys have gone over what the duty to act is. So the duty to act is an individual's responsibility to provide patient care. You know something that can save somebody's life. At that point, you have a duty to react. Once it's okay. So once your ambulance is called to treat and you have begun those treatments, you can't just be like, nope, I'm done. I'm tired of it. They're buttholes. I'm leaving. That's negligent. Okay. So you have the duty to act because you're on duty by a professional company and or fire department. You can't just be like, no, we're not gonna respond to that dispatch. Hand me the next one. Don't work like that. So here you go. In most cases, if you are off duty and come up on a crash, you are not legally obligated to stop and assist patients. Know your local laws and policies pertaining to your duty to act. So I have to say, I'll use myself for example, and I like my career, I like my job, I like everything about it. I've done it for 20 years. There's nothing on my vehicle, has never been, that says I'm an EMT or paramedic. I don't want it. I just don't want it on there. Because then when people see you drive by, and they're like, oh, look, there was a paramedic that just passed and they didn't stop the help. Cuz that's my decision. Sorry, I'm fresh out of helps. I want to be able to make that decision if I stop and help or not. If y'all pick up what I'm putting down. Before I go any further, does anybody have any questions about anything? I don't know if I've lost anybody. Let's see how many people in here. The 23 people that are here are super, super quiet. So I really hope that I've not lost anybody. Or even if y'all are paying attention, you may just have me on mute and keep rocking with the slides.
We're here.
Good deal. Good deal. Good. Appreciate it, Kobe. Not everybody can take the time to read it. I don't know if y'all know this, but and navigate, you can also listen to the slides. You can hear that monotone. So if you're driving up and down the road, or you're going to be traveling for a couple of days, you can listen to it. I've never been a listener. I've always had to do a reading or be like, yeah, I'm here, but I've already read the chapter because I can highlight stuff in there or pull stuff out. So that's ability. Aubrey, where are you at? I have to ask. What area? Those oil field people got to take care of everybody. That's the thing. I'm a little jealous. I'm not in bed either. I know where you're at. I know the area. let's see. You don't know where that is. That is, it's the Grand Canyon 645. I'm on the Holstein Spar, one of the largest spars in the Gulf. We're pretty good. It's about a, enjoy it. It's a great place. So to keep going, well, Joseph, sorry, I don't know why I sent that straight to you. I'm sorry. But I'm out here 14 days. So if sometimes you hear, I know exactly where you are. I see the MC 2822. I did a lot of work on one of the Exxon teardown jobs out there. So negligence. Let's move forward. I can tell y'all some stories, but I'll keep quiet. So negligence right there. Hey, Joshua, they pay decent too, bro, or should. So negligence is when you fail to provide the same care to one person or the other. If you just say, I'm all right, I ain't gonna treat him, unless you have a triage. If you've done triage and you can say that person has been triaged, a black tag, which means that's imminent death or they're dying, you have no leg to stand on when they come back and be like, yo, bro, you failed to treat my mom. You stepped right over her and went walking. So if you don't provide your level of care and you just screw up, that's on you, bro, because we told you you got to take care of the same care to every person that you come across. Negligence will put you in jail in a heartbeat. No, come on. All right. All the four below following factors are present for legal doctrine of negligence. They all have to apply for a plaintiff to prevail in a lawsuit against the EMS provider. I'm gonna go over them a little bit in depth. So duty is the obligation to provide care. So if you're on duty, you have the obligation. Breach of duty. If the EMT does not act within an expected and a reasonable standard of care. So I made all these notes today for y'all, so y'all feel important. I took some time to did some studying. All right. So damages. A patient is physical or psychological harmed in some noticeable way. If you've caused harm, you go into jail. Somebody's gonna pick out your outfits. All right. And causation is the cause and effect relationship between a breach of duty and the damages suffered by a patient. So you caused harm, physical or mental, you just decided not to do your job, or you just say, it's not my job, not my problem. I always like to say, well, I can't see it from my house. Well, you ain't gonna see it in your house for a long time. If you did all that, you going to jail, cuh. So, and even if I see you doing that, and if I don't do something, I also am now negligent for not providing the standard level of care and allowing you to cause harm to somebody. So yeah, it sucks. I get it. Don't be that guy. There's always a policy about that guy. Don't be that guy. Do unto others as you want done to you. And I mean, I know 90% of EMS loves their job. They are overworked because a lot of times they allow themselves to overwork. But when the day comes around and you're like, no, I'm done. I don't want to do this no more. Get out. If you leave for a good reason and somebody's mad at you, that's their problem. Probably because they tired of running calls just like you and you finally did something to get out of it. But don't allow somebody else to cause harm when you know that that's wrong. All right, so tortice is a civil wrong. Negligence per se is the conduct of a person. Oh, sorry, hang on, I made some more notes. Hang on, I gotta read about that real quick. Civil wrongs not within the jurisdictions of the United States criminal courts. Examples include defamation of character and invasion of privacy. Negligence per se is a theory that can be used when the conduct of the person being sued is alleged to have occurred in clear violation of the statute. Somebody give me an example. Now I'm gonna put y'all to it. Give me an example. Anyone? Anyone? No. So I'm gonna read the other one. Y'all talking about that. I'm gonna badger this one. The top one. I'm even gonna try it. I'm gonna read it. An EMT can be held liable under this theory if it can be shown that an injury occurred, that the cause of the injury was in the control of the EMT, and that such injuries generally do not occur unless there's negligence. So if they can prove that you caused injuries while that patient's in your care, bye-bye. Hello. We'll see you in 10 to 15. And you will no longer be an EMT and or paramedic. You will automatically lose your license. Even if you get a DUI and it's reported, sometimes your state can suspend your license for X amount of days. Now, you have to drive to be in the EMS. So guess what? If you get a DUI and you can't drive, well, then they can sue, they can fire you because now you can't do your job. And remember, don't ever do anything that you don't want on the front page of the newspaper and your grandmother to see it. That's what my mom always told me, and I'll try my best to remember it. All right, so abandonment. So abandonment is when you basically up and leave somebody and they tell you, yeah, you can take care of me. Please don't let me die. And you just don't do nothing. You just leave them. Sitting right there, nothing's done. You just poof. All right, so abandonment is the unilateral termination of care by the EMT without the patient's consent and without making any provisions for care to be continued by a medical professional who is competent to provide care to the patient. Once care is started, you cannot stop providing care until somebody, either the same level of care or higher, takes over. Do y'all understand that what I'm trying to say is if you pass your care off to just Joe Blow cop and you don't do it and they don't know nothing, you abandon your patient. That's super, super important because people, I swear, just don't get it. I don't know why that people don't understand that you can go to jail for not doing nothing because you started something and you didn't do it. That you didn't see through. I'm sorry. That's it. So you over, cuh. All right. So abandonment can take place at the scene, the emergency department. The scene can be the house, the car wreck, whatever, and you're just like, all right, well, that's somebody else's problem. I'm out. I'm done. So by obtaining a signature on your patient care record from the person accepting transfer care at the hospital, that's the reason why the nurses, doctors, wherever you're at, always signs the PCR, which is the patient care report, because now you're saying on this date at this time, this person took full care of my patient and I relinquished care, okay? So if they sign it and they say yes, they're cool. Don't just be like, oh, well, yeah, move them over to that bed and y'all can go ahead and go. When you go to sign it, they're like, oh, well, just sign my name. Cuz, not doing it. No. Remember that. Don't just sign it with somebody else's name on there, okay? Yes, dang. All right. Some states have assault and battery. Some states have, some states don't have battery. Just depending on the way the laws are written in your state. So you need to know the difference between those. An assault is an unlawful placing a person in fear of immediate bodily harm. I make you feel like I'm going to hurt you. An example is I'm going to restrain you without your consent or the need of. This includes threatening to restrain a patient who does not want to be transported. And battery is the unlawful touching of a person. Includes providing emergency care without the consent. So they can charge you with battery. If they say, oh, I didn't want them to do it. Now, kidnapping is the same thing. Here, look, here it is. So kidnapping, seizing, confining, abducting, or carrying away by force could include a situation where the patient is transported against his or her will. False imprisonment is the unauthorized confinement of a person. Serious legal problems may rise in situations in which a patient has not given the rescindent's consent for treatment or transport. I'd like to joke right here. I'm gonna show y'all something. Let me get this. All right. So listen, y'all look at me. I know I'm ugly. Y'all just gotta keep paying attention. I like to say this when we talk about kidnapping. I look good in orange, but I don't look good in stripes. Stripes is felonies in my state. So remember that when it's time and you think you're gonna take that patient because they really need it, it's kidnapping, bro. Now remember, you get to wear somebody else's uniform, not yours. So on all of these, the assault, battery, and kidnapping, know your duty to act, know what you're supposed to do, and know what you, if I do this, is this considered an assault or is it battery? Now, yes, they can also be charged with assault and battery of you too, but a lot of times they will come after you because you had the duty to act when you know, but you unlawfully took this person, all right? So that's important. I'm gonna hide myself so I don't have to get sick no more. So remember when you're doing these things, have them sign consent of treatment forms if your agency has it. We have them out here, but I mean, I'm the only person on board. If they come to my office needing something, they know that they are unanimously consenting treatment if they're in my office. Oh, come on. All right, so defamation is the communication of false information that damages a person's reputation. This again can go to social media, can go to whatever, can go through text. It doesn't matter. That's all about written or spoken, and all statements on your run report should be accurate, relevant, and factual. If it is a lie and you put it in there and it's proven that you lied, you're probably going to get fired. Not only are you going to get sued, you're probably going to get fired. You have to be very cautious with that because that goes back to the Hipaa form. I mean, they can get you for Hipaa violations, and then if they sue you due to the violation of Hipaa is a lot worse than just defamation. So if they get you with a Hipaa violation, there's proof of it. You can't hide from it. There's proof that they got you. So be very cautious what you do, say, where you're at, what you post. I always say that I have a thing that I don't post anything unless it's old. Period. If I go somewhere, vacation, if I see something, I don't post it until it's at least a week old. Because it's one of those I have had time to think about it, process it, and rationalize. Should I do it or should I not? Now, I've made some stupid decisions. I can tell you, I ain't perfect. I've made some really stupid decisions. There's been a lot of policies written about some of the crap that I've done in my history. But be careful when it comes to like abandonment and kidnapping, battery, breaking the Hipaa violation. Those are serious, folks. You're getting into a profession that is not just garbage pickup, grocery stores. You're getting in more into the professional world to where things that you do say or hear can wind you up in court. Now, I'm not trying to scare you guys. I've done this for 20 years. I've been in the Middle East. I've got a case that when I was in the Middle East that will go to federal court. I've been to federal court once over it, and we'll have another hearing where we have to go in front of Congress, the Congressional Hearing Committee, because it was a diplomatic personnel. I've been to civil court. I've been to courts where wrongful death suits. So I guarantee I've probably been to, in 20 years, I've probably at least done 10 cases that I've been subpoenaed for, or my reports have been subpoenaed. So just remember that it's not scary at the same time, but make sure you just do what's right. When you start questioning and do what's wrong, that's when you got big problems. So the Good Samaritan laws, they are laws that are based on the common law principle. But when you reasonably help another person, you should not be held liable for any errors or omissions that are made in giving care. That is the Good Samaritan law. But remember, you are now trained, licensed, and certified as a medical provider once you finish. To be protected by the Good Samaritan laws, you got to have several conditions. You acted in good faith in rendering care. You rendered care without expectation of compensation, and you acted within the scope of your training, and you did not act in a grossly negligent manner. So the Good Samaritan law will cover you if you stop to help somebody and you're out of state, because you can technically only be a lay responder at that point because you are not in an area that you have jurisdiction or medical control in to provide care. All right. So if you provide care and you're out of your district area, you're acting upon yourself. So that being said is you guys to be careful. You should be covered underneath the Good Samaritan law if you stop to help somebody and you do those 4 bullet points and no more. Okay. Stand by 1 second. I need to send something real quick. All right. So there's the kind of the breakdown of the Good Samaritan. All right. So, whoops, I forgot. I hate when I do this. So you have those 5 bullet points plus this. So gross negligence is conduct that constitutes with lawful or willful or reckless disregard for a duty or standard of care. Immunity statutes apply to EMS systems that are not considered governmental agencies, and sovereign immunity provides limitations on liability and is not complete. So like here's an example, so you'll be covered underneath Good Samaritan. Let's say if you're transporting a patient out of state and as you come up on a wreck, you have the duty to act, but you cannot abandon your patient in the back of the ambulance. So one of you, we're gonna have to stay with the patient, exit, and provide care until that local EMS service or fire service arrives and you relinquish care to somebody that is equally or highly trained. That has happened multiple times. Or you're transporting the patient out of state and your ambulance breaks down, you can transfer care to another provider so they can continue the care. Make sense? Hope so. That's kind of some outlines and ideas of how that is. Reports and records. All right, you should compile a complete and accurate report of all incidents that involve any type of runs that you do. If you make a we'll call it BLS, which is a basic life support run. The BLS run, you pick up Fred from dialysis and you take him back home. You still have to do a report on that and at least obtain one set of vital signs and document. Because we're a little bit more than Uber, so we have to do something. Plus, if you don't do any type of charting or gathering of information and you transport somebody, you're stealing from the company. Because that company pays you to work there. And if you're transporting free people, you aren't going to get paid. So at the same time is you need to be smart about that, about you need to gain as much information as you can because it's going to be your patient. And I need to get paid. I don't know about y'all. I'm not saying I make the best money in the world, but I would always be willing to make more money. Caesar, I'm just now seeing your message. It says, would it be the same if you're on duty and drop the patient off the stretcher? So are you referring, so I'm not missing your statement. You're asking if that's negligent if you accidentally do that?
No, it was on the subject right before negligence.
Let's go see. So you're talking about the duty to act or standards of care?
I think you might have passed it. I think it had to do with one of the three categories that we were talking about earlier where let me see if I might have jotted it down.
Negligent per se.
Yep, that's it.
All right. So yeah, you can still get in trouble for that, but 90% of the time what happens there, I've seen it happen. I have dropped one patient off my stretcher in 20 years. Thank God my patient was unresponsive and didn't remember any of it. I did report it to the hospital. I did report it to my EMS agency. I did have to write a separate report on that because that's an incident report. There was no harm caused to this person afterwards, but yes, you can be called. Oh, whoops. You can be charged for that. But a lot of the times that's due to either mechanical issues or unstable terrain. And your EMS agencies, a lot of the time, try to sweep it underneath the rug and say, hey, listen, we'll give you the ride. We won't charge you anything. We'll just bill your insurance company if we can just settle this like this between us. I've seen that happen a lot of times in my area when it's happened that way. So that's kind of how they get out of it that way. Let's see here. Did I answer your question enough, or you still have more?
Oh yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Reports. I know I said it again. I'm gonna keep saying it. I'm gonna keep saying it. So hopefully y'all, hear it more than 3 times, and it starts to become repetition. If you did something and you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. So when you write a report and you mistakenly write the vitals down because you didn't take it because Fred has the same vitals as he's had for the last 27 times that you've picked him up and taken him back and forth from dialysis to the house, that's negligent. It's easy to just put the blood pressure cuff on and let the machine take it. It's super easy. But you got to document. Document is besides it's the number one thing that needs to be done no matter what. You may have to take some time after the report to compile all your notes that you may have written, like vital signs, treatments, and you write them in a certain way. It may take you some time to write all this information. So doing that, it's okay to take a break and be like, oh, I'll have to write this report in a little bit. But remember, you got about 16 other runs that you finna make throughout the day that you, and then you gotta turn around and write that report. So write the report as soon as you can. If it is a traumatic event, they may want you to wait 8 to 12 hours to finish writing your report before you get it done. But you're still gonna have to document. So the National EMS Information Systems, that does provide the ability to collect, store, share, and standard data throughout the United States. But I can tell you, they don't communicate, because everybody is a for-profit company, unless you have like these hospital-based EMS services. Sometimes they are not hospital for-profit. They just do it because you come to their facility. They're gonna get their money anyway. So transfer of information through EMS ain't like it is at the hospital. So at the hospital, if you go to one hospital versus the other, they can request your records, but it ain't like that in EMS. So just because Fred's like in the other county and you don't run on him all the time, he's like, oh, I've been transported a bunch by the ambulance. I should be in your system now, because let me just tell you, you're not. It don't work like that at all. It's aggravating. I promise. I know. All right. So some things that you have to report, and it's not as in writing, it is as in you must make a reporting to the highest level of care. Like when you get to the hospital, but you have to turn that into somebody. Anytime that a child has been abused, an elderly has been abused, injury during commissions of a felony, death-related injuries, or childbirth, certain things like that has to be reported. You can't just deliver a baby on the side of the road and give it to the mom and be like, have a good day. Don't work like that. They gotta go. They gotta go to the hospital. So most states have reporting obligations for healthcare providers and emergency responders, including EMTs. Again, if you see any signs of abuse, drug-related incidents, or childbirth that's non-reported, or a child death, those have got to be sent to somebody. Sexual assaults are in there too. Most states automatically have a reporting system that's contained on suicides. Like in the state of Mississippi, it's not a crime against a person, it's a crime against the state to commit suicide. So at that point in time, I don't have to have your permission to transport you to the hospital. The officers that respond have the right to take care of you before they can put charges on you. The officers can, because you broke a state statute. It's weird, I know, but I understand the way that it was written. All dog bites got to be reported. The dog has to be confiscated for, I think it's 72 hours. Report has to be done. They got to check and make sure it's not a non-violent, and they don't have rabies and all that crap. Communicable diseases, and we're talking about like TB, not like the COVID. But again, if they have TB, HIV, AIDS, all that stuff that can make a vast majority of people sick, that has to be communicated on. Anytime there's a domestic violence, assaults on anybody, that has to be reported. And that can be reported to the police. If you're not comfortable doing it that way, you can report it to the hospital. And then at that point, the hospital has been notified, and you can document that in your chart. And then again, they are obligated to call and report that. Also, again, sexual assault or rape, those particular patients need to go to a sane nurse at a sane hospital. I'm not 110% sure what SANE stands for, but it is a certified something. Basically, they are certified to do the rape kits. You can't just up and take them to a walk-in clinic, because they don't do it that way. Anytime that you've been exposed or has been exposed to an infectious disease, transport of patients and restraints. So if you go to a prison or a jail and you pick them up, a lot of times they will leg shackle them and shackle them to your stretcher. Like as myself, I always like for them to leave at least one arm open so I can either start an IV or check their blood pressure without any restrictions. They do not like to leave you and the person in the back alone. A lot of times they will put a guard that rides in the back. It just depends on the person and their charges. Transport a patient, scene of a crime and the deceased. A lot of times you and police will get called to the scene of a deceased at the same time. But if not, you have to report that and request an officer to get there. A lot of agencies don't tell you this. It is not your responsibility to be on scene of a dead person for a lengthy amount of time because that is a crime scene, not an EMS scene. So that being the case, once PD gets there, you can leave. It's bye-bye. It's on somebody else, not you. So a lot of times agencies will bill for on scene times. But again, remember, it's not your job to stay there. Let law enforcement do that. That's their job, not yours. So ethical responsibilities. In addition to legal duties, EMTs have certain ethical responsibilities as healthcare providers. Ethics is the psychologic of right and wrong, moral duties, and idea professional behavior. Morality is the code of conduct affecting character, conduct, and conscience. Bioethics specifically addresses ethical issues that arise in the practice of health. So again, just the easiest thing I can break it down to you is do what you expect. If you expect somebody with some education to come in there and take care of you, then do the same thing to them. No, you're not their housekeeper, you're not their maid, you're not their butler, but a lot of times just grabbing their jacket or turning the lights and the TV off before you leave, and you're like, "Hey, Miss Jones, is there anything else I can do to help make this better?" If she wants a special blanket, oh, okay. I mean, is it really killing you to load her suitcase in the ambulance as you're going to the hospital? No, because she's obviously been there multiple reasons, so she knows that she's gonna be there for a while, and if she's the only one that's there to take care of her, who else is gonna bring her first pair of panties? I mean, let's think about that. That's cool. Be nice and help take care of them. Come on. Require you evaluate and to leave ethical standards. Allows, what's it say here? Applied ethics is the manner in which principles of ethics are incorporated into professional conduct. Allow rules, laws, and policies to guide you through your decision making. If it's not ethical, it's not correct, it's not written in the laws, and it's going to put you on the front cover of the newspaper and your grandmother can see it, it's probably not the right thing to do. Remember, you're a professional. You're not just the guy that changes the oil at the oil change place or the garbage man. You're in a professional setting. Always act professional and look professional. So at the end, the EMT can end up in court as a witness or a defendant. Case can be civil or criminal. You may be required to be there for multiple days. That your agency can't hold that against you. They have to pay you while you're there because this incident happened on duty while you were there. If this is a part-time job and you work somewhere else full-time, you have to make those happen because both bosses have to be aware of this. But if you get subpoenaed, you cannot not show up. You will go to jail and you will wear another color. So that's kind of the way I look at it. Thank you, Joseph. I appreciate that. So SANE stands for Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner. Thank you. I appreciate that. So there are certain hospitals that have these nurses out there. They are very, very, I hate to say beneficial because that's definitely not the right word, but they they know the legal, ethical, and moral ability to take care of these patients. They know the process. We don't deal with that process much. We just know it's our job to transport this patient the fastest we can with the utmost safety and respect to this particular person, he or she has been sexually assaulted, to the most appropriate facility. Because you know what? That's the right thing to do, and it's our job. So if we have to bypass a hospital to go to another hospital that has these nurses, you know that's the right thing to do, and it needs to be done. Whenever called to testify, your service director and your legal counsel should be represented by the company. As a witness, remain neutral during your testimony. Always review your run report. Even out here, I always write in blue ink. Now, I know you can't write on an electronic chart, but if anything ever comes up, and they give me a copy of my report, that's not my report because I write in blue ink. I want the original copy. I want the original. I don't want a copy. And another thing that I'm particular about is I write with certain types of pens. Yes, I have my twerks, but the pens that I write with, no matter what, you can always smear it. So when I write a big report or I know I have to do a written testimony, I'll smear the last part of my name with my finger. So if they hand you a colored copy, you can tell if that smear is legit or if it's a colored copy. Don't go off your color. Don't go off the copy. Go off the original only. And you can always request, sir, I can't testify. This is not the original documentation. Now, here's the problem. When it comes time to do an electronic report, they will print your report out. So I suggest that when you start learning to write reports, that you write your reports in the same way. So I'll teach you later as we go. There's a certain type of it that is, we write in the chart format. And the chart stands for Chief Complaint History Assessment. R stands for treatment, as in like RX. So what did you do? And T stands for transport. And there's always an E after it. So it's charty. And the charty, E is for everything else. Sometimes if I'm really being a smart aleck and I know that it's going to come, I'm typing in the chart. It will be like this. It will be a D charty. And the reason why D stands for dispatch. What did you get dispatched for? And I write that on every single one of my charts. I do it out here. Even though I don't get dispatched, I still have certain particular things that I put in my chart. I write them the same way. I've done it for 20 years. I've been to court. I know they not fun because you stand up there and you know you did everything right, and then they try to make you feel like you a turd. So I don't wish going to court on anybody, to be honest. They suck. Why is it not working? So as a defendant, an attorney still is required. The attorney is generally supplied by your service in a civil suit, and that means as in like your company and our department requires that. A defense may include statute of limitations, the time in which a case can be commenced. So just to let you know, so if you deliver a baby, cool. That's a cool thing to witness. I don't know if any of y'all are parents or y'all had a baby. It's amazing. Samantha, when they do electronic reports, is it okay to sign your initials on it? So yes, you can sign it a certain way. It's tricky. So it's tricky on how they allow you to sign them. Some of them you still have to sign electronically every single report, or you put your signature in on the very first time of your electric report and it automatically adds it. You still can't really tell if that's your original report, but if they bring up something, you can see your report from your agency before you go to court. So if they give you a different report in court and you know that's not yours, then tell them, say, this is not the report that I wrote. And I know why, because I write in this, and this way. Somebody may have, come up and done something. Yeah, all these years of charting comes in handy now. Yeah, Bailey, it's good. So governmental immunity is generally applied to municipalities or other governmental entities. If your service is covered by immunity, it may mean that you cannot be sued at all, or that it would be limit the amount of monetary judgment recovered. Then you have the legal defense may be raised when the defendant feels that the conduct of plaintiff somehow contributed to the injuries or damage sustained by the plaintiff. So I don't know this for a fact, but I want to say if you work on a federal reservation as a paramedic, as an Indian reservation, that you can't be sued civilly because that is I think they have immunity on the reservation. I don't know that to be 100% sure, but I think I've read that somewhere. That's why I'm saying that. So I think that's the case. Discovery allows both sides to obtain more information throughout interrogations or depositions. If anybody's ever been to court in general, y'all know this is about the same thing. So you have both sides, they want to get their report out there. They're going to tell everything that they can or come up with something. They may dig back to when you were 4 and you farted in your cousin's face, some weird crap like that to make you look like you're a bad person. So they may do that to say, oh, he was a bad paramedic because when he was 4, he, fluctuated in his cousin's face and da-da-da. And you're like, what? How did you know? So it's weird things like that. Then you go to trial. Most cases are settled following the discovery phase during a settlement phase and do not go to trial. Not all of them like that. For those that go to trial, several types of damages may be awarded. You may have compensation where they have money. Then you have punitives are included to deter the defendant from repeating the behavior, reserved for cases where the defendant has acted intentionally or with a reckless disregard for the safety of the public. And these damages are not commonly awarded in negligent cases. So you can be charged and have to go to some type of rehab or, for them to make sure that you won't cause harm in the future, or they may pull your license completely and you're done. It just depends on what's happened and why that case is why you're there. You could have been sued for a wrongful death to where the patient had died prior to you getting there, but the family heard the wrong story, as in, oh, well, he just didn't do anything. They just let my husband die. Look, I've been there. And you're like, after they hear and see your report of, patient was decapitated on arrival, there was no signs of life, blah, 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 blah. They may continue with it, or you just may be there because now they're suing the trucking company that he hit. I mean, they will do it all. Judge says defense is really good at doing all they can to discriminate you. Yes, it is their job to make you look like a POS. No matter if you're a Eagle Scout on the president's dean's list, that's their job. All right, so any EMT charged with a criminal offense should secure the service of a highly experienced criminal attorney. It's going to cost you a lot of money that you don't probably have. It is very smart to get your own attorney and have your attorney work with the company's attorney, because you both have your future in mind, but at the same time as the company has different priorities. They have them first and you second. So it is very good to have a backup plan, to have somebody there to help you when you get in trouble. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and get an attorney on, speed dial, or pay your monthly dues to have your attorney handy, but it is important to know some that are in your area. I mean, I have one on retainer all the time due to an ex-wife, but that's a whole different story. But that's really, I despise the yawning. I don't know where that comes from. Legal and ethical is not to scare you. It's to let you know that this job, it doesn't exclude you from being sued or criminally charged. It is just something else that is a reminder for you to keep in the back of your mind, to know that there still is, consequences for you not doing your job. It's not like any other job. You can't just do something wrong and turn and be like, oh, it's not my problem. Can't see from my house. Well, but you now have legal, ethical issues that you have to worry about to take care of. So if you do something wrong, you've got to pay for it. And in the other industry that you may just get fired from, but now it's your problem to deal with because you were negligent, you caused harm, or you may have caused death to somebody. So it's really kind of where we're at. Legal and ethical. Why is my cursor not working? So that's kind of really it for the night, guys. I don't have anything else. I'm not gonna keep harping on and try to come up with something for us to just think we're gonna try to learn. I'm gonna try to find where the code is for the class tonight. Let me down in the bottom. Whoops. So your code's in there for the night. Remember to do your attendance record. Your test does not open till 10 p.m. tonight. So take some time, go into Navigate, use some of the other tools that are unlocked for you guys to do some learning, do some quizzes, and do some practice stuff. Start familiarizing yourself with the Navigate. I will be using that a lot more. Myself and the other instructor, Mr. Brandon, we will be adding some things to the lecture. I haven't sent it yet. I know I haven't put the code in here. I just typed in at the bottom, but I haven't hit enter. So if there's some questions, guys, I'm gonna stick around for a few more minutes and try to help you guys out. If y'all have some Navigate problems that we haven't addressed already, it may be time for us to like share your screen and I can help you out and I would show you my screen, but it's very different versus the instructor side, the student side. But I just want to get y'all on the same page. So when we start going on and I put out a message and, in the Discord and I'm like, hey, there's a potential extra credit in the chapter 3 part of the Navigate, it gives everybody the opportunity. We also talked about doing on some of the potential extra credits or anything like that, limiting them to a 12 to 24-hour window. And they're not going to be mandatory, but if you come across them and you have time to do them, or even if you don't need the extra credit, we don't know what we're going to do yet, but it will always be put out in the group, the Discord, so somebody has the opportunity. Don't forget your test. You have two options. Two chances to take it. 70 is passing. If you don't make 70 or higher, that is a fail. And don't forget, you got to pass the module to continue on. So I want each and every one of you to continue on and press forward. And we want everybody to finish the class in the program. I don't want anybody to have to back out due to grades or attendance or anything like that. So yes, Rhonda, I probably will just have to unlock yours specifically, not as in I will open it. I won't extend it for everybody, but I will do it for one-on-one. How's that? Got me? So when it does come time and you get your navigate set, I will go in there and adjust it for that way. I know some of you guys are having issues with the books, the codes. Trust me, so are we. Like I said, we just moved over to this program. It is way better than what we were. So just bear with us. I'm sorry. I hate to apologize for a lot of things, but some of the things are just not in what I can control. All right, folks, there's your code. The code is 1774. Hold on, let me make sure that's right. For some reason, I want to say it's wrong. Nope, it's 1775. Anybody can tell me what that is. That may be a good thing. See if anybody's a history buff. But that is your code, and our physical in-person class is also going to be using the same code. Guys, I'm going to chill out for a little bit. If anybody has any particular questions, please pipe in, turn your mic on. We'll talk about it. If not, I'm just going to sit here with my mic muted for about 10 or 15 minutes if nobody says nothing. Thank y'all. Have a good night. See y'all Tuesday. Remember Tuesday when I will be traveling home, so it'll be a long day for me. So if I'm a little bit late, bear with me. Have a good night, folks.
Thanks, likewise. See you Tuesday.
I have a question.
Talk to me.
So whenever I go on navigate, let me get out of the full screen. There it is. Okay, so whenever I go to navigate and it brings me to the jblearning.com. And
Hold
it
on one
shows,
second. Let me get. I'm just trying to get on to that way so I can look at it too.
would it be easier if I shared my screen?
Yeah, I'm trying to stop sharing my screen and
Oh,
try
okay.
to figure out where this pause the recording is. I gotta stop recording. Stop recording.